Welcome to the Fretboard Journal podcast. I am your host, Jason Verlinde, the founder of the Fretboard Journal magazine. I'm also the guy behind our Fretboard Summit taking place this August 23rd to 25th in Chicago at the Old Town School of Folk Music. Thank you for tuning in. Every week on this show, I try to talk to somebody I love from the world of guitars. And today I'm talking to two people I love. It's a doubleheader, folks. I am talking to Maya de Vitry as well as Anthony da Costa. Maya was just featured in our 54th issue. Eric Pooley did an incredible job documenting her story since leaving the Straybirds, finding a solo career, getting to Nashville, all the good, juicy details. It was a great piece that is out now. And Maya just released a new record called The Only Moment. It comes out literally the day I'm recording this, July 12th, 2024. Go check it out. Beautiful, beautiful album. Amazing songs. And then we've got Anthony, who's just this incredible polymath, joining in, playing guitar. So for this interview, I'm talking to both Maya and Anthony. You get to sit in and be like me, be a fly on the wall while two friends talk about the creative process and how a record came to be. This is one of my favorite things about the Fretboard Journal, is being a fly on the wall and absorbing all that we can from musicians and builders and all these cool people in our guitar community. Like I said, our 54th issue is out now. If you need to get it, go to fretboardjournal.com, click on the subscribe button. If you want this issue with Maya and so many other great pieces, just click the Get Current Issue button so that we can make sure you start with that one. We do have some in stock, so order them while you can. They will sell out. They always do, but right now you can get the issue, and thank you in advance for subscribing to the Fretboard Journal. We are brought to you by our friends at Collings Guitars over in Austin, Texas. Anthony swears by them. I do as well. When we started the Fretboard Journal 20 years ago, I wanted to be the Collings Guitars of guitar magazines. I hope that we are doing that. I love these guys. Everything they do is so amazing. They're going to be at our Chicago event. Please follow them. We're also brought to you by Seattle's own Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar here in Washington State. One of the coolest vintage instrument stores around. If you ever find yourself in Seattle, come say hi to me. We'll go over to Mike and Mike's. It's a great experience. They have a full service repair and restoration shop. I swear by their work. I know you will too. We're also brought to you by Peghead Nation, where you can get your first month free or $20 off of any annual subscription with the discount code Fretboard. Stringjoy Strings is still offering you all 10% off of your first order at stringjoy.com with the promo code Fretboard. They now have banjo strings as well as mandolin strings in addition to acoustic and electric guitar strings. We're also brought to you by our friends at StewMac. If anybody needs any instrument parts, any kits, they have the coolest kits around. They're going to actually be building a, I believe, champ kit throughout the summit. If you want to go meet the folks from StewMac, ask them how they do what they do, get advice on stuff you may need. Even if you're not a luthier, they have everything imaginable when it comes to guitar parts. I'll include a link in the notes to all of their offerings. And then the only other thing I want to add is I mentioned the Fretboard Summit. It's taking place August 23rd to 25th, 2024. The lineup of this year's summit continues to grow beyond my wildest expectations. Jill Patterson is now playing. Jake Eddy is playing. Blake Mills obviously is playing. Joe Henry, Colin Hay, Valerie June. It's just a who's who of inspiring and amazing musicians and fresh musicians with interesting points of view. I hope to see a whole bunch of you there. We still have a very small amount of 3-day passes. I want you to go nab one if you are at all curious about the summit or thinking about it. Go to fretboardsummit.org. Your 3-day pass gets you into everything, every concert, every workshop. You can bounce between stages. You can do whatever you want. It also gets you access to the incredible guitar show that we have on site at the Fretboard Summit with like nearly 100 exhibitors. It's mind-bogglingly cool. The summit is just this like magical family reunion, and anyone listening to this podcast is part of our family. I would love to see you there. The beauty of this thing is it's sort of like summer camp for guitar nerds, but you can stay wherever you want. Stay at whatever hotel or couch or relative's house or whatever you want. The important thing is you just get to the venue, Old Town School of Folk Music, in the morning, and we will have you entertained all day and night long. It's a beautiful thing. All right, I'm going to get to my conversation with Maya and Anthony again. The record is called The Only Moment. An added bonus for anyone tuning in, Maya was here at the Fretboard Journal just a month or two ago, and we filmed her performing a couple of songs, and the first one of those is on the Fretboard Journal's YouTube channel right now. So go subscribe to our YouTube channel, dig in. We have so many great videos on there. It's an embarrassment of riches, and we have more on the way, including a new Bill Frisell, but we'll get to that at some other point. Here is my conversation with Maya de Vitry and Anthony da Costa. Maya de Vitry, Anthony da Costa, we're making history here. We got two people with D in their names, but also you guys are like really good friends. So I've never done that before either. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And Maya, you are in our new issue. We did a little piece on you in the Fretboard Journal's 54th issue. I'm not sure if you've seen it yet or not. We're mailing those out. Hopefully you have.
I haven't seen the hard copy yet.
Okay.
My friend, Eric Pooley, who did the writing on the piece, he sent me some pictures of when it came in his mail. So I haven't actually gotten my hard copy yet.
Right. We'll fix that. That was a story that documented your career, the Stray Birds, moving to Nashville. In typical Fretboard Journal fashion, we have this really long lead time. So I think we are mainly talking about the Infinite EP, but you have this new record out and Anthony is on it. Talk to me about how The Only Moment, the new album, came to be and how long you've been working on it.
Yeah, I started this record we started tracking it, these tracking sessions that Anthony was a part of, like in June and July of 2021. But before that, we had been, the band that's on the record, the core band is Anthony da Costa, Dom Billett, and Ethan Yojevitz. And those guys had been the people who I would play at like the 5 spot and in Nashville, or then we did this residency that Anthony was doing at D's that summer of 2021. And so those are, I had never recorded with like that band, those people before. And I really, really wanted to. And Anthony's been a part of my music like since before I was making any solo records, because he was on tour opening for the Stray Birds and we became good friends then. And he really encouraged me to, he's like, when you finally make a solo record, I'll play on it. Okay. Like just do it. And Anthony's just been such an encourager and, champion of my songs and to be playing live in the studio, which is how we recorded it. Like I was singing and playing live. Anthony's playing, everybody's playing, they're like this, to me, like to sing in conversation with Anthony's guitar playing is like such an elevating like thing to me musically. Like we just get to like play off of each other, and everybody in that project is so creative, like on their instruments. Like Ethan as a bass player is doing things that are not, always typical of like a bass's role in a band. And so he and Anthony can then be having these conversations that I'm hearing like the tension and the excitement between those two. And then Dom Billett is just this like rock solid like presence of a drummer. And it was just this project is it's like to me it's like a moment in time, but it's funny that it's not really just one moment, because it took me like 3 years to make the record or really to like commit to putting it out. And but yeah, it's kind of been a long time coming, because these guys were involved with my music, maybe like one person here, one person there in other records, but this is the first time that those 3 guys, and then also my friend Phoebe Hunt, who I've separately played with a lot in Nashville in more stripped down kind of ways, just like, playing duo shows and singing harmonies together and stuff. She's really featured as the singular harmony singer on there. So, it just, I love that, I love that that fretboard journal piece came out and was really focused on the infinite thing, because and at this moment in time, because I've just been laughing about how, when music is released, you're kind of asked to, like, it's supposed to all make sense and be really like linear or something, like there's some linear progression to something. But, like, I know Anthony's like working on his new record right now in the midst of working on all these other records for other people. And like, there's just nothing linear about what we're doing. And then it's supposed to kind of line up and look linear on the, like, for people to make sense of it on the other side. And it's just not that way. And so I feel like this is such a fun moment for me to be like, yeah, like I'm just like letting go of the fact that it's none of it is linear, and people might come to my records and find the second album first, or whatever, like, and that's how I am with any music that I love. It's not like, hey, have you heard of this artist? Okay, I will start with the very first thing they released and work my way chronologically. So I'm just trying to kind of accept that. And anyway, thanks for wanting to talk about this new record.
Yeah. So for folks who've been locals who see you and Anthony play semi-regularly around town, like, have they heard these songs? You said that it's been going on for years. Like, were all these songs out in the open sort of for years, and that you finally got them into an album, or some of these nobody's heard?
So I think most of these nobody has heard.
Okay.
I think almost all of these songs we did play live at Dee's that summer of 2021. Anthony had a residency there, and then he asked me to kind of do a co-bill style thing on the residency. And so we played, I think, almost all of these songs. But maybe just one time, maybe some of them, maybe more, but that was back in 2021. And then since then once we recorded them, I put because like the earlier shows that we had been doing were different songs and songs from other records and stuff. But it hasn't really continued. I haven't really continued doing shows in town with that band, because I've just started trying to build a thing of touring again from scratch, in a way, like just going out on the road solo or duo. Like about once a year, I'll take a band out for like a week. I'm doing that in September, a full band for 1 week, but it's just it's not something that I've been doing. So and when I'm coming back and playing in town, I'm just trying to like be at home. I'm not really doing the bar shows anymore there that I was. I guess I am trying to remember, like, I haven't played in D's in a while. But for a long time, whenever I was playing at D's, it was an invitation from Anthony to join one of his shows there. And that's probably I think the last time I played at D's was at Americana Fest, at the event you hosted, Anthony, last year.
Yeah.
He did a big bash over there. And so that's the last time I was playing there. But it's all been very spread out. It was, a lot of shows, but in concentrated residencies or something. Like, we had this residency in one time at the 5 spot that was like 5 shows over 5 weeks of January. And then the shows in the summer of 2021. So it's been a while. It's just like I've been in a different chapter. Again, like, it's nonlinear. Like, I'm living in this other chapter now of like really trying to tour a lot, and having put this record like aside to kind of unwrap it when I was ready to kind of change gears and play these songs.
Yeah. Anthony, you're like the great connector, and I can only imagine in Nashville, everybody must know you, and you're probably like the matchmaker of musicians and everything. When you and Maya first met, when she was still in the Straybirds, and you were encouraging her to write solo material and record solo material, like, did you see all this on the horizon? Did you know where her career was headed and what the music was already going to sound like?
Well, first of all, thank you for calling me the Great Connector. I recently lost AnthonyDaCosta.com to a scammer fake gambling advice website.
Okay.
And even if I had $50,000 to buy back my precious domain name, there's no contact for them. So and also jokes on them. I would never pay more than $500 for anything like that. So I need a new domain, and maybe thegreatconnector.com will be available. I cannot and will not say that I knew exactly how anything would go for Maya in terms of a solo career, with the exception of perhaps a cliche, but something that I really mean, which is that whatever Maya did next after the Stray Birds, and I already had a feeling that there would be things that Maya did after the Stray Birds. I knew that whatever she did would be so undeniably her, because Maya carries a spirit in everything that she does that is like impossible to extinguish or set aside or ignore, in my opinion. And so anyone that hears Maya do anything is going to be gifted with that. And so for me, I also know and knew at the time that Maya was far too prolific to have just one musical outlet. And obviously, like, this was the context that I had met you in, Maya, and you know, this band, the Stray Birds, who I have said before, and I will say again, if there's ever been anything that actually, if Americana is real, if that is a real genre, and something we could actually say exists, the Stray Birds were the best at it. Best Americana band of all time. Don't know why else we would have a conversation about anything else. To quote my friend Kenneth Pattingale on a recent tour we did, why would anybody do anything else? I love the Stray Birds so much, and I got to know Maya through the context of opening for them and traveling with them. But I knew on that particular tour that we had done, this was all the way back in 2016. I was like horrendously depressed after being dumped by somebody, and just like flew straight from that literally straight from that experience to opening for the Stray Birds. And I was in my own car, but on every day of that tour, they would all, each of them would like take a break from the van to ride with me, keep me company. And we ended up having like basically these really fun, cool, long conversations and sometimes therapy sessions. And actually that was the tour where I got to meet Dominic Billett, the drummer for this record, and so many other things that Maya and I both have done. But yeah, it was like the day that I was riding with Maya, and I remember being stopped at like a gas station or something mainly, and having that conversation of just like, I knew that Maya had so many songs in her, and I knew that this was somebody that I needed to, or that I very much wanted to have a meaningful musical collaboration with, you know, beyond the already wonderful context of traveling with Maya and the band and opening for them and having them as friends in my life. I've never been someone, for better or worse, in terms of my bank account or whatever sort of status. I have never been one for involving myself musically with anyone that I don't like really believe in as someone who is like doing something very important and unique with their writing and performance. Like, I really don't. I'm not, in some ways, I'm not cut out for a place like this, because, you know, there's a lot of encouragement, even in my years in New York, of being a side person and like, just got to get the gigs and get the gig, you know, and see if you get on a salary, or like, you know, or the, like in New York, just like learning a million people's songs every week, playing Rockwood 1, 2, 3, 6, 10, you know, every week. Not something that I'm interested in. I only really want to be involved with people that I can like really collaborate with. And I had this feeling about Maya very early on. And so, in terms of getting the gig. I wanted, if there was a gig at the time that I wanted, it was that gig. And this is coming off of touring with some of the brightest musical minds in our very small Americana scene, touring with Aoife Donovan and Sarah Rose. But to me, like, Maya's writing and her singing is up there with anybody that I've ever heard. And I don't really know anybody who does it quite like you, Maya. I'm talking to you and also Jason at the same time about you. So yeah, I just kind of had this feeling that Maya had a lot of things to say beyond her current musical context. And whatever that step was, I wanted to be there in whatever capacity was helpful. And so, yeah, I didn't know that she would necessarily, I couldn't have predicted that necessarily that the exact course or how many records or what. I mean, when we started this, Maya told me, I've written some songs, but we just like got together and played them at her house. And then the context was like, maybe we'll do a gig, but like, I won't tour. And then and I won't make a record. And so we were just playing these like tiny gigs around town, like New Faces night at the basement. It's like, we're not New Faces. Like, what is this? But we played like a set at the 5 spot at like 6 p.m. as part of someone else's night. And like, we were just doing these fun duo gigs and just arranging the songs from what was Maya's first album, Adaptations, what became that. But at the time I didn't know, it was very much not lighthearted in terms of the material or the intention behind the writing, but just like, hey, this is just like an outlet. It would have felt, maybe you can say, I would have felt like at the time was just like, this is an outlet for me. It's a new thing. I'm kind of experimenting with it. And hey, friend, do you want to like be a part of it? But there was no plan for it to become this whole, what's really become like, we're in a real chapter, a real era of your work, Maya, and your own songwriting. It's cool how it's developed. There's more to that story, including one day Maya calling me and saying, "Hey, do you want to come to my friend's studio on Friday? We're going to do pre-production." I'm just like, "What? We get to make a record?" And it's like it's all developed from there.
Yeah, I mean, when I showed up, I remember like Anthony coming over to my house on Sunnymead over in Inglewood in East Nashville, and sitting there on the couch and like coming up with these parts in like this song "My Body Is a Letter" and like these early songs that became a part of Adaptations, the first record, and just, I don't know, just like playing like and singing harmonies and just being so psyched about the songs. And like, I had been so much in this bubble of working in the Stray Birds, and these were songs that did not make sense to me in that context. And Anthony was just so psyched to be playing, and I just felt so excited to like, and then I wanted to I was thinking about starting to record some stuff, and I went over to Dan Nobler's, and, he was like, "Yeah, come and play me some of your songs." And he ended up producing and engineering that first record. And he was like, so I showed up with Anthony, like, and I think now looking back, Dan and I have laughed about it, how, I was such a band mentality. Like, it was like, you come with your band and then you record. Like, it's not like you come to a producer and they help you put a band together or something. Like, I just showed up like with Anthony. I was like, this is my guy. Like,
I was the band.
Yeah. Like, Anthony's my band. Like, here's my songs. And Anthony had all these kind of parts already woven in to the songs. And I think in that I think there was this moment of tension then when Dan said, like, "Wait, who is this guy?" Like, I thought we were making a Maya record potentially. Like, what? And I'm just like, yeah, this is my guy. This is Anthony. Like, I don't know. And it's cool because now Anthony and Dan have like a really, really long friendship and professional relationship. And
I'm sitting in front of his old console, the console that recorded Adaptations on. I bought because I tell people this all the time, talking about if you could predict how things go. I tell people all the time, if there's one record that's, I hope, would think someday that like somebody would discover, some larger group of people would discover and appreciate as a classic, I think it would be adaptations for me. Like that record is so special to me, but it really did start from that funny place of like, there wasn't really any sort of big defined plan. I think it was such a big deal to you, Maya, at the time to even be like stepping out in any sort of way musically beyond,
oh my God, yeah,
like you said, the band mentality and the band bubble that like, you know, and as we were kind of developing those original arrangements and songs, like it was kind of this, I mean, it was your baby, it was your project, but I also felt like, I think I felt a little protective of it as like your friend and as someone who was like kind of, yeah, developing those arrangements with you. And so, yeah, like I showed up to this thing having no idea who Dan was. He had no idea who I was. And I think we both were like, wait a minute, like, who are you? Because that's like, you know, there's maybe like, and I don't mean that with any sort of like dark connotation, you know, but that's like, you know, the kind of, there are some things that people want to be a part of because of where it might get them. And then there are some things that people want to be a part of because what it might like offer their soul. And for me, like I was feeling protective of the project because it was something that was like really, really important to me. And also like it was not the first time, and nor was it the last time I walked into a room and someone has told me to turn my delay pedal down or something. So that was the big thing, because Dan's also a guitar player and plays on a lot of the records he produces. So I think we were both kind of like sizing each other up. But like the first day of the session was like, we were like instant buds. It all clicked. I still play music and work on stuff with him, as well as the drummer from that record, Jason Berger. And like, it's just all become like an extended family of musical collaboration. But that's kind of where that's where our collaboration became, I think, a little more official in a way, was making that record. And that's why revisiting that kind of collaboration in the studio on this record, the new one, The Only Moment, was like so cool to me, because I'd been kind of like, I remember, Maya, when you went and made your next record, which was mostly a completely different band, and Courtney Hartman on guitar, and this like totally different approach, and like no harmony vocals, you know, and it was just like this totally different approach. And as like a Maya fan, I was just like so excited. But as the years went on, I was like, man, I'd love to get in the studio with Maya again. And it's like, and I didn't even prompt it or have to beg for it. Like, you know, this project coming along. I remember when I went to the listening party for How to Break a Fall at your house, Maya, and we listened to it. It was my first time hearing any of it. And, you know, as someone who was so close to you and your songs, and like, and I remember afterwards, you know, everybody was like congratulating you and the band and Dan and everybody. But like you and I like met in the hallway, and I said the kind of emotional, sort of like emotion driven compliment that like could sometimes get me in trouble. But I basically said like, man, like what's funny is this record, like that record, like listening to that record destroyed me, you know, in the best way. And I was like, man, just to think like you probably have at least 4 or 5 more of these in you, and I'm just going to have to go through this every time, of just this feeling of like being absolutely like touched by this music, you know. But that's why like this record, to my understanding of how this record came about, and please clear this up for me, Maya, if you will, but it was like you wanted to get together with that band again, but you, meaning this live band that we had, but you also wanted to record some of your co-writes and songs that other people had recorded of yours. Like my understanding, the initial sessions weren't like necessarily about this like next Maya de Vitry album necessarily. I mean, it was going to be a collection of these songs that you had like co-written, but then you went on a house sitting visit, and that all changed. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, I had a whole list of songs, like all these other co-writes that I had, you know, all this collaboration I had been doing around Nashville, writing with other people. Some of the songs had ended up on other people's records. Some of them had not. They were, you know, they were just in my pile of songs. And I had, I actually went and I met and walked through the Bomb Shelter studio over in East Nashville, and was like talking about recording there. And this was just like right before I think this was like right before the pandemic. Because I was just on this, like, once I got into making my own records, like I was just like
Yeah.
so hooked. Like I was like,
Yeah.
this is like the most alive I've ever felt musically, is like putting these songs together in these little song worlds and with cohesive things going on. And I just wanted to make more of that. And then that never happened because of a variety of things, that exact vision. But some of the songs, like Odds of Getting Even and like things like that, were on that list, and Burning Building. So they were on that list. But then I went, and that whole idea got shelved because of the pandemic and other things and circumstances. And then I actually, ironically, I wrote most of The Only Moment while dog sitting for Dan Knobler,
All
who,
connected.
who produced the first two records.
Yeah.
And I was dog sitting for him, and he has a piano and drums, and just like I would sit and like put like a drum loop on, like that I would find, like a random drum loop on YouTube, and then just like be like jamming at the piano and like start to write like the song that became Compass. And just all these different these different things, and kind of came out of that with like, okay, this, I'm not gonna, I think I have some of these songs feel like magnetically attracted to each other. They want to live on the same record, but also with these other couple co-writes. And so it just became, I just, and then I really got, what really needed to happen for me is I needed to have time to get comfortable with the idea of producing myself, because I, that's how I was first going to get comfortable with the idea of producing myself, by doing an album of all co-writes, so that I felt like there was a layer of somebody else's input, like a buffer.
Yeah.
Like at least another person had sculpted each song with me. Like, and then maybe I could trust myself to produce from there. But like I didn't have to commit that I wrote the songs and now I'm going to produce, like there's too many layers of Maya. I was just like, no, I want to make sure there's enough other voices, other people, in this mix. So that's how I was going to get over that hump. But then that record never happened. And instead, I co-produced Violet Light, the third record, with Ethan, Jevitz, who's my partner and who's the bass player on The Only Moment, and has been in various other musical contexts with me. But we co-produced that record, made it really, really slowly, like over a long period of time in the pandemic, in our house, very like DIY from the ground up in a basement studio. And that gave me a chance to really like slow down my musical processing, kind of, and like all the decisions that had overwhelmed me before in the studio. Like, I mean, when I was making adaptations and How to Break a Fall, like I was just like, I was the songwriter. I'll just Dan, hand me a guitar, do things to the pedals, like choose everything. I'll just tell me when to start, tell me when to stop, tell me when it's time to eat lunch. I could, like, it was so emotional for me to make my own records at all, that I was just like, I could not really function on any other levels of decision making. I was just too much to bite off at once, especially like I had, especially from, I don't know, I just felt like such a, it felt like I was like, even though it was like, the band had broken up, and that era was like over, it had disintegrated, the Stray Birds, but it still felt like I was in this new, like uncharted, like secret future or something. And it felt really uncomfortable to me. And I just couldn't handle too many decisions at once. But making Violet Light really slowed down a lot of that stuff. And I could be like, wow, what drummer, what do I want to hear on this song? Like whose feel on the drums like would interact with this song in like a really inspiring way to me. And like I got to develop my taste so slowly and so thoughtfully. And I wasn't under the pressure of like, time, really. Like we could just make those decisions over a long period of time and be like, wow, let's hear Kaya Cater's voice on this song, and then send it off to her remotely, and she would add it and send it back. And like, wow, yeah, that's amazing. Like, so then coming right out of that, that's when I put the session together for The Only Moment. That was, we wrapped that record up, recording for Violet Light. We wrapped it up in the spring of 2021, and then almost immediately went in with this dog sitting batch of songs plus a couple of the covers that were like that I was still kind of really attached to from that idea of, or not, the co-writes, not the covers, but yeah. But to me, they kind of feel like covers because I've heard them on other people's records now. So I'm like, wait, this is a song that I had something to do with writing? I don't know about that. So then I got to go into this studio space and suddenly like we all felt really, I think there was some kind of collective empowerment that happened to a few of us, during that pandemic period in a weird way. I mean, like Anthony became a producer and engineer and now like has a studio, and like it has been a part of so many people's records in so many ways. And like I never would have had the I would have found a different path. Like I would have done that co-writes record and then slowly done other things. Maybe I would have found a path to like producing my own record of primarily original music, or it is original music, but still like some of the odds of getting even. I'm like, I've heard it too many times for it to feel like I wrote it. To be able to, I don't know, it just, I could everybody coming into there, like everybody had like a humility of like, wow, I can't believe, just like a humility and a respect for each other. I think of like, I can't believe that I get to be in the presence of these friends and who like had grown so much creatively because everybody had been involved in like remote recording sessions because of COVID, and like everybody had suddenly like kind of grown in this way of like, and I could run the session like, and I could even fathom when it was time to like eat lunch, and I knew how I wanted the songs to feel, and I could imagine these guys on these songs and like what, and we had like a rehearsal day or two, and our friend Alex Wilder, who we're up at, this all happened at Mike Elizondo's studio up in Gallatin, Tennessee, and our friend Alex Wilder works there, works 9 to 5 or studio hours like Monday through Friday. And we had access to this space on the weekends as a perk of Alex's job. And I mean, it's a world-class studio. And so we got the opportunity to go into this, having like kind of begun to cut our teeth, all of us in our own garages and basements, and, sending a remote track to this friend here or this friend here, and doing what we could and kind of limitations. Then we're all together in real time with, these songs and just feeling so, I don't know. I just felt like I could do it, or I could play and sing and be aware of, be listening to how things were interacting, because I had practiced listening while slowing it all down. So it was, it's such a winding road, to arrive at something that feels, or like to arrive in a place and time where you feel like you're taking a leap, but you feel like a little readier for the leap or something.
Yeah, I mean, before we hit record, you were talking about getting braver and braver in the ocean, and it sounds like you're dipping your toes in and you're wading out to your knees, and then you're finally, taking off on a wave.
Yeah.
How? I mean, I listened to this record and it's beautiful, and Anthony's electric guitar work, sort of is in all the right places. producing it yourself, like how directive were you at the gear, the sounds? Like, did you just kind of trust that Anthony would bring the right guitar to those sessions and it would all work out? Or were you like, no, I need you to play this and I want the guitar to sound like that? Like, how hands-on were you?
I would say that in that aspect, I'm pretty hands off. Like I feel like I'm asking Anthony to be a part of it, for his decision making in those ways and for his expertise and like if something is like I won't know the technical way to ask for something different anyway. I'll more be like, I was thinking this mood was more like purple than orange. And he'd be like, oh, I got you. Okay. And then he would like choose a different setting or a different, guitar or I really was wanting this to feel a little more spacious, but also like maybe at the end it's like sand is like falling through your fingers or something. Like it's all like I can't help but kind of think about music in the same way I think about songs. Like it's all, or production in the same way as songs. Like it's all these like images and feelings and like a room and lighting and things like that. And so then I have to trust like that, the musicians in the room with me they know, and like they know what that means on their instrument and their vessel of expression, and they do. And sometimes we would take a minute to find it. That's how I remember it, at least. I don't remember really directing anybody to play any specific. I don't even know what the guitars are all called, like I don't know how I'm on the Fretboard Journal podcast.
You're listening to the Fretboard Journal podcast, brought to you by Some Guitars.
but I mean, I think that is an aspect of like, that's been part of my fear in getting involved in production or getting involved in being in studios and being in, there's so much language. It's like a different language. You could be sitting there and someone who is fluent in English could eavesdrop on a conversation about audio for like 2 minutes. And they're like, I'm sorry, I need a translator. And like, so Anthony is like a professional translator in a way, like I can say like this, I think this needs to be a little more like sugar. And he's like, I gotcha. And so that is really empowering. That is like a true collaboration to me. It's not like, excuse me, what do you mean? Like sugar? What is that? Is that what? And then throw a bunch of musical terms at me to kind of be like, impossible to collaborate with, lady. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, but to be like, oh, I kind of have an idea. Like I felt that feeling before. I think I know what guitar to pick up right here. I think I know that I need to dial back this thing, or I think I need to, I don't know. And so that to me is like that's what makes this record to me, like the experience of making this record, what makes it feel so alive to me is I was able to like speak in those terms. And then Ethan on the bass could be like, I'd be like, I want you to be at the end of the song, if they feel like wings. I was just like, I want you to be, I do want fretless electric on that. And like that is going to be amazing. But I want you to just be this like bird exploring different like places in the wind. And that's what I want that ending to feel like. And to push people, then I get the chance to push people in some uncomfortable ways using language that is like maybe untechnical, and then they can meet me with technical language or technical know-how, because I'm not a super technical guitar player, like I'm very like I'll hold down the chords, but
one of the best rhythm players in the game.
Yeah, when I go and listen to the
I mean that one of the best
I have the stems now from this session, and I can like listen to what I actually played, and I was like, oh, I guess I was making a lot of good decisions. Because I'm being, I don't know, but it's really easy to be really hard on yourself. But for me, this record would not have happened without so carefully I so carefully chose the people to be in the room with me, but I didn't need to carefully choose what guitars they were going to play.
Yeah.
They were going to do that part.
What guitar did you bring?
I played one of Mike Elizondo's. I played one guitar for the whole record. That was the one decision that with the thing where it's like, okay, I can only make so many decisions. Like
Sure.
I used to not be able to, know which guitar to pick up. So at least this time I was like, okay, I'm just going to go back into his guitar locker and I'm going to pick up a couple guitars. And I know I want to play acoustic because that's the most comfortable I am is playing acoustic guitar. That's how I wrote most of the songs. And I'm going to play acoustic and sing. And we're going to build the sound world around that. And so I don't know like the year or anything. It was like a small bodied Martin. And that's what I played for the whole record. And that was the one consistent thing for me that I could play. Yeah, it was like familiar. And on every song, like then I could maybe make one change. Like, okay, I'm going to finger pick it on this song, or I'm going to play with this pick. I'm going to change like the denseness or the feeling of the pick or the way I'm strumming the guitar on this but then there was just like less for me to change. And so I was super aware of everything else that was changing around me. That all the other decisions people were making and, switching basses or switching guitars but that is consistent. And so that's this thread. You just hear this same acoustic guitar the whole way through the record. And then I did layer a couple other electric guitars. Like truly, I would have to go look at the notes from the studio. Like I can't tell you what electric guitar I like. I did this kind of like of just like a consistent kind of percussive electric layer on the first song, Nothing Else Matters, because that's one I just layered on top of myself. And then I also played this like a Nashville high strung style thing on just like as a percussive guitar layer. You can hear that in the and towards the ending especially, it starts to come up in the mix, but you can hear that as just a percussive layer, an extra layer that I was hearing. So I did that on a high strung, and that is at the end of I'm Not Going Anywhere. Mm-hmm. And so there's like some layers that I added like that. But yeah, I would say that's as far as like I can get you that details.
Oh no, we don't. I mean, the record speaks for itself. I don't need to nerd out on it.
But I mean, yeah, like I'm like the other end of the spectrum. I'm like, well, I played this one that sounded like butter, and then there was this other one.
The world needs both, I guess.
Oh, definitely. As someone who's been in the weeds of the guitar gear world for, well over a decade at least, the world needs both. Yes, because I not to interject, but I mean that was the cool part about this. One of the cool things about this record for me was that it was presented to me, I believe, as like I want to do like 5-spot band in the studio, know. So my approach, if I may, was my approach was to essentially, I guess, approach this record like I was playing live with Maya in the studio, which we were. But like and it was funny because like everything, there's so many things swirling in my head based on everything you just said, Maya, especially about like the way we all grew during the pandemic in terms of working at home. The only person who had us beat with all that was Don Billett. Don Billett was recording and making great drum sounds at home and songs at home before the pandemic. He didn't need a catastrophe to jump into it out of limitation. He was already doing cool stuff, but I Yeah, I mean, I think this must have been not the first, but probably one of the first sessions I had done outside of my like apartment or something for like a long time. And so suddenly I did feel like you could have that kind of classic like cliche of like a kid in a candy store feeling when you're in a studio like Mike's, because it's like I made records for years and years and years without knowing or caring about any studio gear. And if someone had a cool guitar or a cool amp, I was all about it. But other than that, I couldn't care less, didn't know. I made a record in 2012 around my 21st birthday on like Bob Clearmountain's like Neve at his studio in Santa Monica. Had no idea, didn't care, was writing songs. That's all I cared about. So, and I was in LA, but like now it's a totally different story. I've gone so far down the rabbit hole. So like, I remember even like in prepping for this session, like Alex Wilder, the engineer, who had recently become a friend through Maya and Ethan, he like wrote to me and was like, "Hey man, do you need anything special? Like want anything?" And I remember like, I just hadn't been asked in so long, like what I might want in a studio. And I knew that studio had everything anyone could ever want, in terms of guitars and synthesizers. I mean, Mike's has an incredible collection. And so I was like, yeah, if he has a Juno synthesizer, like let's put that out and I remember we got to the studio and Dom Billett made fun of me because he was just like, "You asked him to put this out?" And I was like, "Yeah, and he goes, "Why? In case you get inspired?" Like he was messing with me. Cause I did have someone like, I'd just been my own engineer for so long at that point that, but my goal was to approach it very much like a live gig. I mean, we had gotten together at Maya and Ethan's house a little bit to just like go through some arrangement stuff. But like I largely played one guitar and I played through one amp the entire session. I played a Collings I-30, which is a hollow body sort of 330 style guitar with P90s. And I played that guitar. That's my main instrument to this day. It's like I've only really got a few guitars, and that's like the one that I play. And it turns out when you get a bunch of studio stuff, you have to sell some guitars. But I really mainly play this guitar, and I played that through a 1964 first year Fender Deluxe Reverb, which I'd always wanted a real deluxe reverb. But like other than that, like that was it. I had my live pedal board with me, and like, I went from, again, like amassing all this collection in my kitchen, which, we've talked about, Jason, like, and like having this like world around me and like processing all these sounds in different ways and having the ability to like play something and even process after the fact. And suddenly I was back to what I used to do. I didn't by any means produce this record, but the phrase that I've always appreciated, it's from a hilarious Johnny Marr interview when he's like, maybe I've talked to you about this, but it comes up a couple times a year where Johnny Marr is like promoting some Boss multi-effect pedal. And he's like, I always look at pedals, it's like producing with your feet. It's like producing with your feet. And that's what I did for many years before I was ever a producer. The way that I sort of like applied my brain and sound and spirit to people's music, like very much had to do with the room and what I was playing, but also like the way that I was processing my sound. And so like, I would argue most, if not all, of the like sounds or effects or approaches you're hearing from my guitar is all, if not all, at least mostly was just done live in that moment, because that's how I approach playing live anyway. And so like making sort of like spur of the moment, creative decisions with people's music live is like something that I've always done, but it really like the safest and best context for it is like with someone like Maya, who like you have a trust and a closeness with, and I think that's what's cool about all of this project is like there's such a through line of like intention and friendship and like, who knew, like I have the track listing pulled up and I'm like looking at these songs, some of which were written in this like funny house sitting week for Maya, and like some of which again were kind of born of that original concept of like, I should probably record some of these co-writes and things that I have. It's like those are not always that's not always an equation for a cohesive album. And I would argue, as I seem to with every single Maya de Vitry record, like this is currently my favorite Maya de Vitry record, having very little to do with the fact that I played on it, because honestly, I did this session with Maya, 3 years ago, and I didn't touch it or hear it until very recently. Like what a like journey it was to revisit this and like remember that feeling and have it all come rushing back of like the feeling of like playing these songs with Maya and Ethan and Dom live in the room. And then like, but then you take a collection like that and then you add a couple of years and you think like, who knows, like what, you have all this, I know this was kind of placed on lovingly on the back burner for a bit, but like when you have all this time to like add things, I would hear about like sessions that were like Maya and Alex were having of like adding things. And then I finally got to hear it and I'm just like, oh my God, it's like, I don't like anything perfect, but it's perfect. It's like the choices that Maya, that you made as a producer are like so clear and like, cohesive with the spirit of everything that we did live. Everything from like the really like every overdub is like very, there are only important moments that were added to these performances. And like Phoebe's vocal, I mean, she might as well have been there with us, cutting, because it all
Totally.
just feels so good. And so, to use an overused phrase, just like so real, for each song. Like I was really stoked on like the treatment and the fact that it was this live in the studio record, but it's been kind of like elevated to this other place, but only with like potentially only in a way that could have happened over this sort of time. And I know that every time, from what I understand, every chance you and Alex had to work on this record, it was like these very specific moments where it wasn't like, it's not like you guys were just like hanging, people don't often make records that way anymore, where you like have the budget and the time to just like chill for a month. Like we're not an Oasis, like we're like, we've got to like, and everybody's got a million things and having to work a bunch of different types of jobs, whether it's all in music or not. And we're spinning so many plates and wearing so many hats, and Maya's recording other albums and touring. It's like, I know that like I can hear it in the treatment objectively, even though I was a part of it on the, sort of the ground floor. Like I can hear that like when you guys met, like it was very focused, very intentional, and like nothing overcooked, nothing superfluous. So that's my review of this record that I technically played guitar on.
As a guitarist who can play circles around most everyone else, like, is it more interesting to be told play purple, not orange, than here are your charts?
I would much rather be told play purple, not orange, or sugar, not salt, or butter, not margarine, than like, to be honest, to be given the same 5 tired references of like a couple year period that Nashville cycles through all the time. Like the first thing, and I don't do a lot of interviews, but I've been saying things I probably shouldn't say, but like, the first thing that bums me out on a session is when like the first thing you hear from producers like, so we're kind of going for like this Kings of Leon, no offense to any band I would mention now, or like the classic forever is like the snare sound on Casey Musgrave, Slow Burn. Like I know some people who worked on that record. It's all cool. But like when you start with this framework of we're kind of going for this other thing that these other people did, when that's where you start, I'm kind of bummed, because to me, and I take that even down to like bands I was in that did covers. I'm just like, cool. And they're like, can you just play the saxophone part exactly? And I'm like, okay, I mean, we don't have a saxophone here. That's kind of interesting to do on the guitar. Could we also see what we might throw together? It's like Maya surrounded herself, myself, I will exclude myself from this, but like, I don't know another drummer like Dominic Billett. I don't know another bass player like Ethan Yojevitz. Like these are like heavyweights, these are like really serious, very deep, very intentional musicians. And like, I think that like, that is one of the marks of a really great, of a really great producer is like Maya said, like knowing who you're surrounding yourself with and trusting them, and like, I never felt like I, was being like corralled or like penned in or other ranch references that I have no business making. Because I think that honestly comes from years of experience with each other of making music and knowing, like Maya, knowing that I'm a firm believer in what she's doing, and knowing the palette that you're working with, knowing the strength of the players that you have, and so like I know that this is an industry and a town, especially built on charts, built on references, built on here's the thing we're going for, and I understand that the conciseness of that and the efficiency of that, but making music like I do with Maya is like, it's among my favorite experiences. Every time I do anything with Maya, it's always my favorite because I never feel like I'm trying to fit into something that has nothing to do with me or the moment, or the artist. Like this is we don't need to shoot for something crazy that's beyond anybody's current moment. I'm getting a little rambly, but I think you know what I mean. Like I just feel like all we were there to do was to like enjoy playing together and really serve these songs by this artist that's actually here. And that to me is like always going to be preferable as a producer, as a side musician, as whatever.
You went, I don't even know how far Gallatin is from Nashville. Is that like close, far?
It's like 30 minutes or something, maybe?
Yeah, 30 minutes, depending on where you are. It could be up to 45, which side of town you're on.
You get stuck behind a cow.
Yeah, it's a little bit out in farmland. It's, you're set apart a little bit from the feeling of like, you're not on Music Row.
Yeah.
And you're not in like, in a studio house in East Nashville either. You're set up, in the farmland a little bit.
And you had this access to this place on weekends. How long did it take to do the core part at the studio?
3 days.
3 days. That's amazing.
Yep. Saturday, Sunday, and then like another Saturday.
Yeah.
That's how we tracked the full band stuff. And then I really did. Yeah, it's like Anthony's saying, it's not like we were up there. It's not like it took 3 years because we were just like throwing paint at the wall for 3 years. Like I released Violet Light. And so I put this record aside to release another one and be in that world and start touring again. Like just be like, okay, I really want to get my thing going. So then I got Violet Light off the ground, started touring, put a touring band together of some people who were more available to be on the road. And I don't think I touched this for maybe a year after those first sessions. And then I started slowly adding Phoebe's voice. And, she would like Alex and Phoebe and I would maybe find a Saturday. We'd go up for like 6 hours and I'd have her sing on a couple songs. Yeah. But Alex and I also needed to like, just be friends. Like I could, he works Monday through Friday. And so like every so often it would be like, gosh, it would be nice to work on the record, but like, I want to just go hiking. And so we would like go on a hike or something. Cause if you can only hang out with somebody on the weekends and you can also only work with them on the weekends, you kind of got to strike a balance. And then Joel Timmons, I'm at his house right now, Joel Timmons and Shelby Means, they live in Folly Beach, South Carolina. And so Joel had been on the road with me and he had this feeling like, I want to make a solo record. And he said, will you produce a solo record for me? And I said, well, I've been hanging out at this great studio and Alex can do it there on the weekends. So maybe we could put a band together. And I got so excited about that because I was like Anthony's saying, like, we all do so many jobs to like make it work to be musicians. Like I'm not just, on my social media or whatever, all I post about is like my tours or my records that are currently out or something. But like I do so many other things for other people, like singing on, like I was just singing on Anthony's record. I do that all the time and like singing and playing on other people's things. And now I've started producing records for other people. And that's like my day job now. Like it takes up a lot of time and energy. And so I totally shelved this record for a while, The Only Moment, and went back to that same studio. So the files for The Only Moment are just like living in file Neverland, over here in the corner. And we started making a whole other record. And then as we got to the end of that whole process of Joel's record, because I was like, I need to put this first because I'm not ready to release this record anyway. I'm not ready. I don't have like the time to put the tour together and to organize the team. And I'm just not ready to do it. So I just kept it on the back burner. And so we get his to a good, stable feeling place. And then I started, going back in and finding more, Saturdays and Sundays here and there, 6 hours here, 6 hours there, going in with Alex. And, I'd show up and say, okay, I wrote a string part. I'm going to attempt a string part. I never did a string part before, but I play violin and I played in orchestras for years, and middle school all the way through high school. And I love string parts. So I thought, okay, I'm going to write one. So I went in, I tracked a couple layers on violin on If They Feel Like Wings. And so, but I had that all ready to go. Like, it's not like I was in the studio writing the part. I figured it out at home and I wrote the part like on my computer, like, playing like in my computer, just playing a thing. Okay, now record this and now layer another thing. So I knew I had it written out what I was going to play. Then I go, Alex puts the good mics, like the legendary mics in front of me. And then I play, and that's that. And so it's a very efficient when I'm up there, or and Alex does the same interpreter thing that Anthony does, where I'm like, okay, all these synth things, all these keys that Mike has, these are like, they look so fun. I would really like to play them. I want something that's like creepy and high. Like what sounds creepy, and then okay, well, let's go over to this corner. And what if we do this thing, So like in a way, like, yeah, like I'm like Anthony says, he's like producing with his feet on the pedals, and like that's happening all in the moment. And Ethan is producing his own bass parts in so many ways, and Dom is producing from the drums. And like there's so many choices that are going into the whole, like I'm just like the person that is like the carrying the thread the whole way through everything. And but it's like there is so much creativity that, at least when we are making a record in this way that Anthony's talking about, where like I hire these people because of what they're bringing to the table and their musicality and like the way that they do play with their feet and their hands all at the same time. And like I don't go in there like, okay, guys, we're making a Casey Musgraves record or something. Like it is, it's very like all hands on deck. Like, let's play this song, like bring your whole self. And then, so for Alex as the engineer, like I had him play Wurlitzer on a song because there's a song called Watching the Whole Sky Change that's just me and that same acoustic guitar alone, like after we'd recorded everything else. And so maybe recorded 2 years after the initial tracking session. I'm just sitting in the main tracking room where probably like where Anthony had been for the main band sessions. And I'm just singing and playing alone with the guitar. And it just lived like that for a while. And then, like Anthony's talking about, then taking time to really simmer, like, what would I add to this? And I actually went on this tour with John Craigie to Northern Europe. I was up in like Scandinavia in January of 2024. So not that long ago.
No.
And the record was still unfinished. And that song was just me and guitar. And I started playing it live on that tour. And I'm playing it, and there's these audiences of like people in candlelit rooms. And, it's very, the warmth of the inside, but cold outside and dark like all the time. And because it's outside, because it's just January and so far north, and just like the wind and the snow and everything just felt so desolate and like ancient. And and I'm playing this song, and if any song I was playing on that tour, the Scandinavian people are coming up to me and they're like, that song about like the candles and watching the sky, like, where can I hear that song? And I was just like astonished that song was moving to them in with basically nothing else going. I was just like, wow, just me playing guitar. That's how it's currently recorded. Maybe I shouldn't add too much to that, because was cooking up this whole like other, I'm going to add some like strings and maybe woodwinds, or like, if I keep taking a long time to make this record, like I can keep affording to add more people if I just wait longer to do it, And then I was like, or I could just go tell Alex Wilder about this experience and say, Alex, do you think you could like play Wurlitzer, but kind of make it feel like wind in Norway in January?
That's awesome.
And he's like, yeah, I can do that. And I was like, I kind of want you to do,
So cool.
I was like, I kind of want you to do this melodic thing. Like, imagine that there's a choir that's singing like watching the whole sky change. But there's no choir actually, but imagine that there's a choir, but you just sort of toy with that melody when you kind of go a little more extroverted with the Wurlitzer for like a very brief time. And other than that, you're just like the wind in Scandinavia. And he's like, yeah, I got that. Cool. So he plays.
It's weird because he's from, I think, Maine.
Yeah, he's from Maine. He gets it. So it did, it was truly like the concepts on the record, and like they were some of them, I mean, they were just, it was just, as it went down. Like I think, okay, so Compass, the first single we released, there was nothing added to that one. It's just as it went down, other than Phoebe's voice. But that's just as it went down that day in probably June 2021.
And not to interrupt, but to satisfy the guitar people, that is the only song I think that I played one of Mike's fancy old guitars, because I've been a long time Collings guitar player, and they are known to be fancy guitars. I like them because I love the people who make them, and they sound really good and they're easy to play for me. They just feel comfortable and they work. And I tend to pick up old guitars, which are like, most of the romance in the guitar world is about vintage guitars, and vintage guitars are so fun and have stories and sometimes ghosts. But I sometimes will pick up like an old guitar and I'm like, this is kind of junky. Like I just like my new guitars that work and feel great. Mike has some sort of meticulously kept, I want to say it was an early 60s like candy apple red Strat, and it was like, I finally understood Stratocasters, and it like was one of the only songs, if not the only song, that I picked up a different guitar than my Collings I-30 and I put it in some sort of alternate tuning and did my best sort of like, if I were to make a reference years later, probably trying to go for some sort of East Nashville Richard Thompson vibe, because I'm so inspired by his playing and honestly his singing when I play guitar sometimes, and that song was so fun to track. And I remember like Ethan's, maybe you would agree, Maya. I feel like Ethan, getting to like, when I met Ethan, he was an upright, a bass player, upright bass, acoustic bass, a new acoustic music bass player, or whatever. The evolution of Ethan's bass playing over the past bunch of years, and especially his foray into the electric bass, has been so fun to witness and like occasionally benefit from as someone who gets to play with him from time to time. But like some of his rhythmic choices on that song Compass are just like absolutely insane and so special. That song was so fun to record, and I love that it's just that live take on the record.
Yeah, I mean, it's so I like the vocal is so groovy, the way that the lyrics are delivered. But then like I note it as when I listen to it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like the little pockets in between, and these like this ping ponging of rhythm that Ethan figured out how to do, like to anchor it. It's like counterpoint, like the way
crazy
that everything's bouncing off of each other. And I'm like, we just it's not like that was like written out, that we just played that and it was that because I kept we kept saying like imagine the 5-spot band live at D's, live at Phantom, it's, I want you guys to be as playful and as not unserious, but like kind of unserious, because there's always this pressure of like, okay, we're making like the version of a song or something in a studio. And it's just like, okay, let's just play the song. Like, what is it? What does the song, just do it.
I mean, there was our reference. Our reference was ourselves in a bar.
Ourselves playing kind of unhinged with like
self-referential.
The pool table. Like, it's like, the way that the pool table, like, or the pool balls are like bouncing off. You have to leave some space for the percussion of the pool balls in the background.
Yeah. Oh man.
Love it.
Some Rent, also a favorite for me.
Yes.
I remember the first time I heard that song, it like blew my mind. It was I think that was one of the ones you wrote at Dan's house, and it like crushed me the first time I heard it. It like so many of your songs do. And it's like, I try to quote that song to people a lot when I talk about this record, and I quote those lyrics. That was something else. I don't know what it was. Pain is not some rent you pay for love. And it's like, it's funny because like so many truly great lyrics, or what's the Dylan quote in the song, is something that walks by itself, whatever. Like you could just have an acoustic guitar voice, whatever. Like I can quote so many lyrics that I love as basically like poetry, but I really love, like I quote that song to people, and then I instantly also just want them to hear it. I want them to hear exactly how you deliver that chorus and those words, because like pain is not some rent you pay for love. Pain is not rent you pay for love. To me, like means so much and like resonates so deeply with me and like so many relationships I've had. But like the song just like rocks. Like we have some moments on this record of just like, we just rock in the way that is like so spirited and fun. And then just some of the moments, some of the other moments that we like Burning Building or Ribbon, like I can't, I don't know. I feel like your records, for me, I get to just like be a fan of it. I've already said this, but I just get to like be a fan of it too, which just like feels kind of weird because you're not supposed to like listen to something some people say like, I never listen to anything I make, or I never watch my own films or whatever. Like, but I listen to Maya de Vitry records that I play on because I just get to hear that. I feel like I still get to hear them in a way that is more external than you would think.
I'm remembering now about that song that we actually did play that at Brooklyn Bowl when you had another Anthony Americana party, and we played. It was like a few months after we recorded it, and we played that. Just and like everybody come up and play one song kind of thing. But yeah, it's I feel like your consistency in showing up in town, and I like sometimes I'm just like, people don't know what like Nashville is it's so saturated, and I feel like I have to leave sometimes to like feel the purity of exchange of giving and receiving music, and like sometimes I've been to so many of your shows and your events, like you'll put together entire events in Nashville and bring together all these musicians, and I'm just like thinking of all these times I've been seeing you there, and just this era of Anthony da Costa in Nashville, and I'm like, like we're just taking this for granted, like it's, so I guess I just want to be like, I just don't want to take you for granted, and that's why I want to keep like playing with my peers and my generation, because like I think that like you see the way that you see me and I see you, and that I see Ethan and you see Ethan, and Ethan sees Dom and Dom sees, the way that we all see each other as you, there's nobody else. It's not like, well, I kind of wish I could collaborate with like so-and-so, but I'll settle for these guys. Like they're like zero. You know what I mean? Same. Like, I think that's just one of the things that I'm realizing that I feel about making this record, and everything I've done is like just so much of of our generation believing in each other, like, you know, no matter, like, there's nothing for any of us to, like, yeah, I don't know, like, you just, okay, so like Alex, who engineered this record, like, I met him at a house concert in Nashville right before COVID, and he said, "Oh, I backed your Kickstarter for How to Break a Fall."
That's awesome.
And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool. Thank you." You're
While trying to put himself through recording school.
that is so cool. Do you want to come to the listening party for How to Break a Fall? It's like next weekend. And he was like, "Okay, sure." So he came over to my house that night that Anthony was there, and, you know, saw me in the hallway and was like, you know, let's, you know, there's more records to come. And so then it's like, then Alex and I became friends. And but it's, you know, it's just like, there's not some, I don't know, I just feel so, I'm like, Alex Wilder is a legend to me. Like Phoebe Hunt
is a legend.
Like, these people are legends, but it's like, sometimes we talk about legends as like, you know, they're not like decades beyond us and these far away untouchable people. And I'm just like, I'm like living among these legends that I get this chance to work with, and we get this chance to see each other in these vulnerable places and work with each other in these places and trust each other and grow up together, where we can see like, wow, we're all so much comfortable in studios than we were 5 years ago. Or like, wow, we're all, you know, except for Don Billett, because he was already there.
Yeah, he was already on that.
Because he's been a legend forever.
In case you were inspired.
But yeah, I just think that's one of the things that like, yeah, I guess the music industry is so funny sometimes because we can get so nostalgic about, you know, what has been done and as a reference point for what we want to try to repeat and things like that. And so I guess I just felt so safe and so believed in by the crew in making this record, and just, yeah, like just have always felt that way, like sitting on a couch beside Anthony of like, I'm just so stoked for like what he is doing and all the music he's a part of, and he is in so many, like, is affecting positively like so many people's musical journeys, like in these interconnected ways. And sometimes you just like lose sight of it because we're just in it, and it's so hard, you know, and it feels so exhausting. And I don't know, I'm just feeling like that it's just like you've always been somebody that really saw and is seeing the people of your generation also, you know, of like let's believe in each other and believe in each other's songs and not like be placeholders for the people we wish we could, you know, have their phone numbers or something. Like, I got Anthony da Costa's phone number, I'm good.
Oh, that's how I feel. I resonate with that so deeply. I mean, I even remember I tell a story occasionally about I was like on this like camping trip with an now ex-girlfriend many years ago when I was still living in Austin. And yes, I went on a camping trip. Stop laughing. And people who know me, and it got cut short, but we did it. And we were on our way back, and I was like all like high from not drugs, but like the desert, and like trying to come up with ideas on the drive back, the long drive back. And we were listening to this album by the band Earth, and Bill Frisell had played guitar on this Earth album, and it was like this cool collaboration. And I like remember thinking, I'd only recently gotten into Bill's playing. I was a Tony Shear fan, which led me to Bill. But like, you know, people were like, my girlfriend at the time was like, you should get Bill Frisell to play on your record. And I was like, yeah, that's probably possible. And I've met him since. I had not met him yet. But I was like, I know people who know Bill Frisell, and I think he played on my friend's album. I think he might be this much a track. And, you know, that's like, yeah. And who do I know who knows Bill Frisell? And I like texted Adam Levy, and I asked Adam Levy for Bill Frisell's contact. was so out of line. And Adam is so sweet to me and my longtime friend. And he like took a second and then wrote to me like, hey man, I don't really feel comfortable doing that, but like, I'm sure you could reach out to his management or whatever. And then I had this moment and I snapped out of whatever manic state I was in. And I just thought, what am I doing? I know Adam Levy. And we made a whole record, me and Adam together after that. I was like, I love Bill Frisell, but I got Adam Levy. Like, oh my gosh, like, and it's just like realizing, yeah, that we are like, I mean, I listen to so much music that's made by my friends, like I always have, like most of my favorite songwriters. I'm lucky enough to say that like genuinely most of my favorite songwriters are friends of mine. And that's not from like angling that I did or like, it's just literally from like people that I like sat around like actual campfires with at like folk festivals and like, traded a guitar back and forth. And I just got to hear these people in this way that you cannot recreate over the internet. You cannot recreate via a recap video. So not to get all old man in my 33rd Jesus year here, but like, so many decisions that are made on a daily basis in this industry are like, it's the internet talking, and like we're on the internet right now in so many ways. And I'm so glad for it because, I didn't know Maya was in South Carolina. I'm glad we could like, almost be in the same room doing this interview, but like, I don't like someone asked me recently, they were like, my publicist, or an artist I produced was like, my publicist needs to know like what you were going for with this record when you made it with me. Like they want to know what you were going for, like probably stylistically or reference wise or whatever. So I can like, they can have a context. I'm like, I can talk about things that I could probably draw some comparisons to, but like, I'm not thinking about these things. I'm not making these decisions based on how I think something is going to do. Like I'm making all of my decisions based on like what I truly love. And like, and I'm so fortunate. Maya is so fortunate. You're so fortunate, Jason, to like, we live among legends. And some of those legends are people who like no one in the with finger quotes knows. And like I like the coolest thing for me is like my whole relationship with, for instance, you, Maya, has been like entirely based on like natural like instances of like meeting and collaborating and just like appreciating each other. And like it was so cool for me to see, like, I was like, man, like Maya's like going on tour, and Maya's like got a, there's like, Maya's got an age. I remember when you first got a booking age, I was like, heck yeah, like Maya's got an age, because you were starting over. I'm just gonna get emotional for a second. It's like, it is not easy, even in a band that is like whatever you want to call getting to a point in Americana or whatever, that's like certain festival circuit or whatever. Like the Stray Birds were playing a bunch of festivals and like doing well in that world from my seat. But like Maya, you started over. Like you completely started over, and you're like touring and like booking festivals and making records and are like working so hard. And to me, like anytime you're actually recognized, be it by an awesome publication like the Fretboard Journal, or be it by somebody covering this song or whatever publishing stuff might work out, like to me, that is like so cool and the icing on the cake. And it's like, as your friend and as your collaborator, I'm like so glad whenever anything like that happens for you. It also has nothing to do with how I feel about your music, and it has nothing to do with anything I will ever ask of you. I can promise you that, or ask to do with you, or be a part of, or ask you for. Like everything that I love about you and what you do has to do with who you are and what you do, as much as when you were playing some festival stage or doing this, or the days where you were working coffee shop jobs and like paying for your own records that way. I'm going to tell you this one last thing, and then I will shut up forever, Jason. But like, and Maya would never probably want people to know this, but like, can I tell this story, Maya, about adaptations? Years after adaptations, can I tell them about the bonus?
You can tell anything. I don't know what you're going to
Maya
tell.
emailed me like years after we made adaptations. She'd already made one or two other records, whatever. And she emailed me and the other original, like the rhythm section of that band, and basically said, hey, I made all my money back on that record, and here's a little bonus. Do you want to know how many times someone's paid me a bonus for a record I played on 4 years ago or whatever? Literally 0 other times. No one would think to do that. Maya has always taken care of the people that she is involved with, and that is very rare. And I will always value that, always, over a recap video or a reel or a momentarily trendy thing. Like, I don't care. Like, the only wealth I have is in relationships like what I have with Maya.
I love it. You guys.
We kind of nailed it.
This is so cool. All right. So
I
there's
shouldn't
some
be the last person to
takeaways.
talk. Please
There's
don't let
some
me be the last
takeaways
person.
here. Everybody go listen to The Only Moment, which is out now. Everybody go dog sitting, because that apparently fosters lots of songs.
Find some good loops on YouTube.
And then most importantly, surround yourself with people who love you. And I think those are the big takeaways.
Yes.
And orange over blue, or vice versa.
Maya, do you have anything to add?
That's great. I think that's so great.
All right. That was my conversation with Maya and Anthony. I hope you enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I loved it. Stay tuned. Next week, we have another great interview. They just keep coming, folks. And thanks, as always, for tuning in to the Fretboard Journal podcast.